That's what's happening in Venezuela. American companies
taking over the Venezuelan oil
not taking
fields?
over, bringing their technology. Hey, you know, as a news reporter, I have covered Venezuela for the last 25 years.
Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, you mentioned, Syria. None of them has worked out the way American leaders.
Yeah, but you didn't mention Panama. It worked.
Another MAGA superstar has been born. That's because Dana Bash, who Mike in the comments called Horsehead, she tried to press Representative Salazar a little too much, and she got what she deserved. And it wasn't just a soft rebuttal with a good argument. Representative Salazar here, she went after Dana Bash as a fiery catfight kind of ignited, where Dana Bash was trying to be self-righteous and proper and politically correct, and our pro-Trump MAGA Congresswoman here, she let her have it in a raw and real way. Rawr. Did I just do a cat sound? Oh my God. It's Sean Daniel here. Make sure you hit that like button to help the video out. Now let's go.
Last week in an interview, you gave 3 reasons why the U.S. needs to go in. Oil, support for U.S. enemies, support for people who are fighting U.S. enemies, I should say, and drug trafficking. We're going to get to some of those reasons in a moment, but I wanted to ask you what you specifically mean by go in.
Going, and thank you for the opportunity. That means to be able to, exactly what we're doing, to be able to liberate Venezuela from this guy who is right now has kidnapped the country, who is a very important drug dealer who heads, as you know, the Suns cartel, and they are just pushing a lot of drugs into our country. So is the duty of the commander-in-chief to protect the homeland from that type of attacks, which we consider terrorist attacks.
Are you talking about boots on the ground, U.S. boots on the ground in Venezuela?
Listen, I'm not really sure what type of military we need to use because I'm not in the Armed Services Committee, but I do know that the president has made very clear specifically to Maduro that he has to go. So the president is trying to avoid any type of armed conflict. Is the Maduro regime who's trying to stay in power and continue harming our country in many levels, as you said, national security, drug trafficking, lack of democracy. So Maduro has a very long list of very bad things that he's done in the last 25 years.
Dana Bash already gives us one stupid moment in the first few minutes, and that's asking for the exact military plan that Trump wants to put into place with Venezuela. Why would you expose the exact plan to this country that you want to help change or defeat? It's just like that moment that we had with the debate with Hillary and Trump back in 2016 when they kept pressing Trump about sharing his plan to defeat ISIS. And he's like, why would I share that plan publicly? So they can know?
Well, there's certainly been a lot of attempt to intimidate him, to push him, to convince him, to cajole him in lots of different ways, including a phone call with President Trump. It hasn't worked so far. I just want to be clear. Are you supportive of military action that includes airstrikes and even boots on the ground if need be?
Why don't we put this into context, right? This is not what the United States, we have the legal framework. We have created, meaning the administration, the Republican Party in power, has created a framework of legality. We have the laws supporting us. This is a non-international armed conflict. We're not invading Venezuela. We're not taking out, or we're not asking to leave the legitimate president of a country. We are taking out, or we are giving him the opportunity to leave with his wife and his children.
But what if he doesn't?
Oh, well, but you know, if he doesn't, then we have, the president has said it clearly, we have the duty to remove him from power because he is a harm to the United States.
And how far should that go? How far should that military action go?
Well, like I said, I am not an expert on this, and I'm sure that the Pentagon and the CIA and everyone that works for the president has this plan mapped out. But I do know that I talked to the opposition. The opposition is ready. I do know that we have a very solid plan.
Again, why would the Trump administration come out and say the full extent of what we are willing to do in order to get Venezuela fixed on CNN? It's not their duty to tell you, Dana Bash, or really even us, the full extent of what they want to do with a military decision. But you know the CNN producer behind this show is just panting if they can get that breaking news line of exactly what Trump is fully willing to do. Even if it harms the President of the United States and his negotiation powers, and even if it harms the United States in their negotiating powers.
And look, this is not the first time that it happened in history. It happened every single president, many of the presidents have had a situation that is similar to this one. Panama with Bush, Clinton with Kosovo, I should say, Obama with Libya. So there are a lot of series of incidents.
Well, I'm glad that you mentioned that.
We have.
I'm glad that you mentioned that because we were just looking and thinking about just, let's say, the last quarter century of history. The U.S. has pushed for and used military action in most cases for regime change. Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, you mentioned, Syria. None of them has worked out the way American leaders.
Yeah, but you didn't mention Panama.
Hoped.
It worked. It worked very well. I'm talking about the Western Hemisphere. I do know my Western Hemisphere really well, and I can assure you that Venezuelans who voted 80 in favor of the opposition and 20 against Maduro are more than happy, and they're welcoming a change of regime, and they're welcoming the fact that Venezuela will be again part of the international community, not a pariah that it helps our enemies. Because you know very well that Hezbollah, Hamas, Iran, hey, you know, as a news reporter, I have covered Venezuela for the last 25 years, and I can assure you that Chavez and Maduro do not bring anything good to the United States. They have given a beachhead to Iran, to Hezbollah, to Hamas, to Russia, and to China. China is their #1 client for oil. That needs to change immediately. We need to be the #1 client for oil.
I'm glad you mentioned oil because that is one of the...
Hit the like button for Representative Salazar, and of course, after an amazing expose of fighting back, gotta love this little cat fight that's going on, Dana Bash has to hit her with the self-righteous little profy liberal statement of, well, I'm glad you mentioned that. I love how she pushes back. She's like, go ahead, tell me, come on. It's like watching a highly educated liberal college girl debate a real political woman who doesn't mess around and isn't protected with her nice little skirts and that daddy's paying for college. That's Representative Salazar over there, being real, ready to go. And Dana Bush is that upright, self-righteous, never steps out of line liberal girl at college. Well, I'm glad you mentioned that because actually this stat proves that blah, 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 and you should protect turtles on the beach. She gives the exact same impression when she does this continually. I'd at least respect Dana Bash if she was more real with us and she was like, oh, since that's what you want to talk about, let's bring up this. But no. And this is why it's so easy to like so many Republicans that keep it real and come at you with some realness like Representative Salazar. Hit that like button for her.
I'm glad you mentioned oil because that is one of the three issues that you had mentioned, and I want to ask you about that. You brought up that there is a possible windfall of up to $1 trillion in economic activity for oil companies as one of the reasons for, quote, going in. I just want to be clear. So one of the reasons you want regime change is to access Venezuela's oil?
Listen, one of the reasons why I want is because I want to liberate the hemisphere from thugs like Maduro. And I do know that everyone in the hemisphere, from Argentina to Canada, would love to deal with American companies, including the Venezuelans. They would love to have the American oil companies going in, helping them restructure their whole oil business because it's completely destroyed. That did not happen with the Russians. It did not happen with the Chinese. So I do believe that the American presence is exactly not only what Venezuelans want, the whole hemisphere. And it's been our fault. The American governments, not only President Trump, because he's the only one who's been paying attention to the hemisphere, but for the last 25 years, the last 40 years, since Ronald Reagan, we have completely abandoned the Western Hemisphere. Right now, and they have been begging, meaning the countries, there's 27 countries that compose this continent, have been begging Americans to help them to be part of their economic bonanza. So that's what's happening in Venezuela. American companies, period.
American companies taking over the Venezuelan oil
Not taking
fields?
over, bringing their technology, bringing their legal framework, bringing the opportunities, bringing our know-how, the way we conduct business. That's what Venezuelans want.
It's not that hard to understand, Dana. You don't think that local Venezuelans would not welcome American companies wanting to invest and build structures and frameworks and businesses and offices in Venezuela and bringing them jobs? Because if they're a U.S. company willing to go to Venezuela and invest and start something, that means they're a profitable company, which means they need workers, which means jobs will be provided by that company to a bunch of locals. I don't see a downside in having the U.S. economy be intertwined into these countries if you're looking at it from a perspective of a local in Venezuela, like the Congresswoman is talking about. Venezuelans would welcome this. U.S. companies coming in. Now, you guys try to spin it. You see how she tries to spin one word? So they're going to take over? They're going to buy out everything? That's not what we said. That's not what we said, honey. Having Dana Bash as a wife would be miserable. You say one little word out of line, she will jump on that thing so hard. Maybe that doesn't really differ from anyone else who is a wife, but hopefully yours isn't a liberal, if you have one.
Before I let you go, you used the word thug, which, makes sense. Another person who could be called a thug is the former Honduran president, Juan Orlando Hernandez.
Indeed.
Who was convicted in an American court for drug trafficking, spending 2 decades in politics in Honduras, helping to flood the United States with cocaine. You want to get rid of Maduro. You've been very clear about that. The president says that he is going to pardon Hernandez. Are you okay with that?
I would have not done that, but I'm not the commander-in-chief, and I do not have the pen that grants the pardons. I do not know what happened.
So you think it's a mistake?
Listen, the president has prerogative, and he has, he makes the decisions. But if I would have been in that position, chances are, but I do not know what happened, but I do know that.
Are you worried it sends a mixed message?
I think that I would have never done that. I don't think that that was what I would have done, but I repeat, I'm not in the Oval Office. I do know that right now what the president is doing with Venezuela is exactly correct for many reasons, and that's why I stick to what I'm telling you. Well, we are in an imperfect world, but I would have not taken that action for what you're asking me.
Dana was chomping at the bit. If you give her a little inch and you go against Trump, she is going to nail you into a coffin, or try to make you say some really, really bad stuff about him so that they can blast her that all over CNN. We know this. But also, if she steps out of line too far, you see how measured she was with what she said, is because of such a MAGA backlash that can happen sometimes, not only from Trump, but the MAGA base. Even some of you guys who watch the videos, you guys can get so frustrated if somebody steps out of line against Trump. And I'm with her on this. I don't understand why we are pardoning this guy who helped flood drugs into our country. Now, we don't know what leverage Trump has on him, what he's trying to get him to go do as a result of this. But I do not like the look of this. You guys can let me know down in the comments. But the rest of the interview that this lady had was very impressive, and she went back against Dana Bash, and she didn't fall into that trap of going too far when she just disagrees with something that Trump did, because it's not a sin to do that, but CNN will try to put you in a coffin when you do talk bad against Trump. Hit that like button for Representative Salazar. That was cool to watch. It's Sean Daniel here. If you want to see this video with Ilhan Omar getting caught lying, explaining her BS again, check out this video right here, and I'll see you there.